hmm
Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Welcome to All Things Leadership. My name is Dr. Horacio Maldonado, and today I am honored to have Dr. Russell in our channel today. Dr. Russell is a technical project manager. Dr. Russell, welcome to our channel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm actually honored to be invited to your show, and I'm looking forward to have a fruitful discussion.
Definitely do. I enjoy talking to you. I know that we talked in the past about transition, belonging. I know that when I was doing my doctorate, I reached out and talked about the sense of um, just having a belonging once you step off from the uniform into academics or into the private sector. Today, I definitely want to discuss about resilience, a little bit about belonging and transition. I know that's those are the three things that we in the past, as part of the Student Veterans Organization with National, we talked in the past. Um, and I wrote some stuff down because I would forget, even if I wrote it like earlier. Many I will forget it. Many military connected students face challenges that affect their sense of belonging in higher education. What key obstacles do you believe impact the connection and success? Uh, for on that perspective, what is your point of view when it comes down to challenge and impact for military connected students in the sense of belonging in higher education?
For one, I think we need to separate the military spouses, the veterans, and the active duty. For an active duty individual, it's going to be hard to stay consistent, even in an online environment, because they're used to deploying. They may not have steady internet, and they may be on missions, and they're not going to be able to complete their assignments. And then for the military spouse, it's just the act of moving and being able to PCS constantly and being able to ensure that their families are settled, their husbands has the support, or not. I don't want to just say husband, it is also can be wives.
Yeah.
I don't want to exclude, but it's just that they want to have a balance there. They have to be there for their family. They have to be there for their active duty spouse. And then if you have children, you have to be there for your kids. So oftentimes for military spouses, they're their ambitions or their goals take a back seat. So they drop out reluctantly, or they put it on the back burner. We're not necessarily willing to drop out, but they miss so many assignments
Yeah.
where they tell themselves, okay, in the interim of survival, I'm going to step back. I'm going to focus on my family. I'm going to focus on my active duty spouse. Um, I will get to it eventually. So from a belonging perspective, and especially in online education, higher education, I think faculty development, they need to be aware of the constraints that we face as a military spouse, as a military family. They also need to be familiar with that culture. It's not just about, oh, my husband or my wife is on a business trip. If your husband or wife is on a business trip, you can pick up that phone and you can call. And if an emergency, they can jump on that next airplane and come back home. If
Mhm.
your spouse is deployed, good luck trying to get
Good luck.
on in the next car or on an airplane and come back home.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stressors that go in, and oftentimes people are not aware and they want to compare. And it's natural to compare, and
Yeah.
it's natural to compartmentalize and say, oh, it's similar when, my spouse go on a business trip and they're gone for two to
Yeah.
3 weeks. It's yes and no. They're not going to be in a combat zone. They're not going to
Mhm.
be in danger. You're not going to have phone restrictions or
Mhm.
email restrictions. So, one aspect in terms of belonging, have organizations and student groups that understand that culture of military lifestyle.
Yeah.
They understand what it takes to take a back seat and, like, honestly, it's not my time yet. But even if it's not my time yet, provide ways and tools so
Mhm.
they still can feel that they are not just a military spouse. They can be more than just a military spouse. They still can be a student. They still can contribute, and they still can go after the goals.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you said PCS, and I mean, I did it about 24 years. I think at PCS like 9 different times, and it was chaotic. I think it's a lot of uh, I think in general, people see, well, the dependents, whether male, female, it's just we're gonna put more emphasis on the deploying soldier or no, I think it's more that because I think the spouse, he or she has the difficult task of holding everything together. Two,
Hmm.
holding the finances. You said a very big one, internet. I mean, connectivity. I know when I was deployed in the Middle East, I would call, be like, and it was gone. I mean, like, well, I waited for 30 minutes for a 15-second call. And it's such an important to give credence to the dependents and the spouses because I think their job is just as difficult as the service member. Um,
Hmm.
I've talked into so many different dependents and spouses of military personnel, and like, well, I want to do something. That sense of belonging that I have goals to, maybe he or she wants to go to school, continue education, maybe better herself, himself, and it's not about support. And I wrote down here that you talk about culture, and it's such an important thing, um, because it does. I don't think we're taught enough about it. I think it needs to
Hmm.
be more addressed more because we cannot discard or not recognize or ignore that sense of belonging because I think it's a dual teamwork perspective, and my spouse was like, well, I'll see you in 8 months. And I'm like, I'll see you in 8 months, type of deal. So at the end,
Yeah.
I think they have a difficult job. Yeah, we have orders, we have things we got to take care of, but at home, it's not like the military. It's not as structured. The private sector is not as structured as the way we had it. So, but I really
Hmm.
appreciate you saying that, especially on the faculty development perspective. It is true
Hmm.
because um, there's a lot of, I believe, a lot of fear, scared. That I have no idea how I'm going to do this. Um,
Hmm. And
good.
you brought up a good fact. It's both. Like you want to keep the stress away from your spouse.
Yeah.
So if they are in a deployment zone, you don't want them to worry about that you can't handle it. Yet at the same time, the spouse still needs an outlet, still needs that support because they're carrying the mental load,
Mhm.
not just the mental load of being a parent, the household, the financial, but even the worry, the anxiety of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You see the news, you see a headline of a group. I'm like, even though you
You,
don't know if that's where they are, they're in the vicinity
you
of that
know
aspect.
it.
So
Yeah.
out of a sudden, your heart rate, your cortisol is going to spike. So it's just that worry. But then when you do get that phone call, when you finally touch base with,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, when you finally touch base with your spouse, you're not going to unload all of that stress and worry onto them. You're just going to be thankful.
Yeah.
So, because you don't want them to worry, you want them to be focused on the mission and on the task at hand. So, having that environment in a online education format is crucial, but not even this extends beyond online education.
Yeah.
I think this extends also within business organizations,
Yes.
especially that are veteran friendly, military
Mhm.
friendly, even military spouses friendly, that they understand what it takes to be in a military family.
Yeah.
And social media, as it has its benefits, but it also has its distractors
Yes.
because you get all the negativity that comes with it and the
Mhm.
positivity. So being able to shut down that noise that doesn't pertain to it
Mhm.
is difficult, but when you do and you have that support from your faculty, from your peers,
Mhm.
from your student organizations, or even from your employer, that's going to create a sense of belonging. And I think that can also reduce the stress, the
Yeah.
anxiety, because they feel supported.
Yeah. Unwanted stress. I like that we said thankful. I mean, for when we get the phone call, like, hey, just checking in, I'm alive, no matter where you're at. But I like that. But it's that's true. I have such a different perspective when it comes on social media. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. Um,
Mm,
I try to spend as much time on social media as possible, just because I think I lose focus on what I want. But nowadays, it seems that every single thing's right here that you need on this phone, so we can go from there. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your contribution to that question. So. Shifting gears here, so veterans and their families bring unique strengths to college communities. How can institutions better recognize and leverage these qualities to foster inclusion? You know, um, how can colleges pretty much leverage veteran strengths when it comes to inclusion? And inclusion is one of the things that in my organization is like, let's talk very briefly about this.
Oh, I know. I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying in regards to that. I hear you. I know my husband had just mentioned it too. Like now it's really not talked about it. We're gonna be everything like we touch. briefly on it, but I
Yeah.
think inclusion goes beyond that. I think inclusion goes beyond gender, it goes beyond sexuality. I think it goes in terms, it's about equity, being able to access information, being able to access knowledge that you may not have. And I think universities and even employers, they can provide that information. So, for example, if you have an organization, an employer that offers, hey, we're going to pay for your degree. Because they have those with employers, like, hey, as long as it
Mhm.
pertains to your job role, we're going to pay for it. But they also have the option to, like, hey, if you're a veteran, we need to leverage your veteran benefits in conjunction with this. If
Mhm.
your benefits, what they don't pay, we can pick it up. So this is just information that is often hidden out there and no one knows the information. So having an
Great.
expert or even a subject matter expert at the university level or in your organization, that will
Mhm.
go a long way. And unfortunately, because I grew up in this lifestyle, I'm a military brat. My dad was in the military, my sister, my
Yeah.
brother-in-law, my husband, my other brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So I come from a history of a military family,
Yeah.
But even then, I had to piecemeal all of that information together because oftentimes in the military culture, as a family, you go by hearsay. Oh, anecdotally, someone did this. Oh, I heard we could do this. I'm like, that's all fine and good and may have applied to your situation, but I need facts. I need something in writing so I can go to my university or go to my employer and say, this is what
Mhm.
information is needed. And even current military mindset, they even don't know. So
Yeah.
having that subject matter expert who's navigated that realm, I think is key. And it's going to provide less frustration as a veteran, as the active duty spouse who wants to go to school, but even for employers,
Yeah.
because you want to be military friendly, you want to be
Yeah.
veteran friendly, you want to take advantage of that expertise that they bring to the table, the
Mhm.
leadership quality, the project management quality, the ability to decide and lead and pressure
Mhm.
um, situation. That's something that I think oftentimes individuals who come from that environment kind of lose, and they lose their identity. They're kind of like, I'm like, okay, yes, got it, we'll do it, we'll execute. But they're not utilizing the skills that they bring to the table to be able to summarize maybe key points and, like, hey, the impact on a budget or on a
Yeah.
project if you went one way. So
Exactly.
having a knowledgeable person, I think, is always key, and someone who's willing to ask questions, though, and not sitting there and like, okay, I already know this. I know information always changes. It changes
Mhm.
from year to year. It changes from presidency to
Yeah.
presidency,
It changes. Yeah.
So you always have to keep up on it and not just sit
Mhm.
there and like, oh, well, I've done this for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. You need to
No.
be humble enough to learn from the
Mhm.
individual who's sitting in front of you.
Humble enough to understand. I love that. And I wrote it down. So you just kind of sort of just threw me into this deep. When I was doing my research for my
Hmm.
doctorate and my dissertation, I interviewed this individual. I can't say his name, but he was a high-ranking individual in the military, and he said this, and it has stuck to me. And I said, you know what? Once I'm done with this guy, I'm gonna follow up on it. So he said, I don't want to use the exact same words, but he basically said the private sector does not care or is willing to understand what you did in the military, no matter if you did 4 years or 30 years. And that stuck to me. So I asked 18, no, I asked 28 people that same question. Sadly, I can report to you with all honesty. Everybody's like, yeah, that's true, man. Yeah, they don't like, like Horacio, you were an E8, and I'm like, yeah, they don't really don't care what an E8, don't even know what an E8 stands for. So, but I believe that there is a connection that we can do between the military leadership or even just from employer to military, like, oh man, I have to hire this guy to make sure that our company looks good, that we're, veteran friendly. And that's pretty crazy because I interviewed some reputable organizations. They're like, look, man, we got to hire 4 veterans and that's it to keep. And I'm like, are you serious? It's
To
almost like
keep that status and to keep
yeah,
that
right.
tax
And
bracket.
wife,
Yes, I hear
thank
you.
you. Yes. So I have a difficult time with it. So let me, oh, how much time I got left? Oh, I got probably.
So, from a military spouse's perspective, I've
Mhm.
always been in corporate America and I have been able to maintain my career with my husband being in the military. And I know we are a veteran-friendly company, and I apologize, I'm not going to be able to share the name
Yeah.
just because I didn't get permission from my organization. However, that is one thing that the Veterans Employee Resource Network is something that can advocate for. And you need to have a large presence. And that's something that I brought up. Like, I read these resumes from vets that are trying to transition. I'm like, this is not going to tell me squat. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I
Yeah.
understand that you let 200 people, I understand you let 500 people. You need to be able to translate your military skills into corporate speak. And
Yes.
I will say nowadays it's going to be a little bit easier because you can leverage the AI. You can leverage, how do I translate military jargon into corporate
Mm.
America business lingo? So that's going to help. I will say, unfortunately, there is still a disconnect in terms of leadership and what positions they need to fill.
Yeah.
You're going to have veterans who are transitioning at an E5 level, but you also going to have veterans who are transitioning at the lieutenant colonel level, and they want to do their second career. They're
Mm.
not just going to retire and sit at home and twiddle their thumb. They're still young. They want to participate in society. They still want to contribute. But you have to understand that just because you're an LTC, you're not necessarily going to get that director level job right away. Because although you have an impressive military resume,
Mm.
they don't know you on a corporate side. So you
Yeah.
have to be also humble enough to take a lower level position, a senior manager role potentially,
Yeah.
so you can work your way up. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get that director role.
Mm.
It's not going to mean that you're not going to get that VP role. You're
Yeah.
just going to have to start networking as well within the organization that you get hired onto and show and demonstrate the skills and your leadership qualities that you've had where you were distinguished in the military. And that goes for the low
Yeah.
level E5 person
Hmm.
to the E6, to the E7, and to the E8. You
Yep.
can bring your ideas, your innovation to it. And I think that's what a lot of veterans may have a hard time for
Yeah.
because before they were being recognized as a leader in
Mm.
the military, and networking outside of the military is a little different. You're not going to get promoted after 2, 3 years. You're going to have
Mm.
to apply yourself. You're going to have to network. You can be in your job for 10 years and not get promoted.
Yeah.
Whereas in the military, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
maybe
I'm
it's
with
the case.
you.
I'm not sure since I'm not in the military, but
Yeah.
um, but that's what I think there's a lot of disconnect is in the transition programs that they
Mm.
have. I do feel I haven't participated in it in that sense because my husband is still in, but I think they need to bring more corporate people in there and
Yeah.
to tell them what they're looking for and how you can translate it. Someone who's was active and now is maybe in HR
Yeah.
recruiting so they can understand how to translate that resume. So
Yeah.
you're not going to feel that frustration. I'm like
Mhm.
1 million. I'm the yes man. I just execute what they say. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
more than that. You need to be
Yeah.
intentional. You need to speak up in the appropriate times, not just speak up. It's not the military. It's not going to be you do as I say.
Mhm. No,
You
I'm
need to
with you.
work
You said,
collaboratively there.
and you said intentional, which is perfect. I don't have that much. I have like about 30 seconds left. Dr. Russell, really appreciate it. You're so correct. We're definitely going to continue being you this chat on another episode. But I really want to take the time to thank you very much, Dr. Russell, for your time and your intellect, your knowledge on this, and I definitely want to appreciate you having you today on our show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will
Awesome.
message you on LinkedIn and then we can set up a team so that
Yeah.
we can further